A billionaire discovers a struggling waitress quietly giving away the only extra money she's offered that night. What happens next is unbelievable. The pen hovered over the paper as his lawyer waited. The room was silent except for the hum of the city below. The billionaire's hand trembled not from age but from certainty. "Change it," he said. "Rewrite everything." The lawyer looked up, stunned. "Because of a waitress?" The billionaire nodded once, eyes distant, already back in a small diner where kindness cost $10 and changed his life forever. Her name was Aisha, and every morning before the sun rose, she stood in the narrow kitchen of her apartment, tying her apron with fingers stiff from yesterday's work. The apartment smelled faintly of detergent and yesterday's rice. The radiator clicked like it was arguing with the cold. She checked her phone for the time, then for a message that never came. Rent was due in 9 days. Her mother's medication needed refilling in 5. The bus pass would expire before the week ended. She breathed out slowly, the way she'd taught herself to do when numbers didn't add up. Aisha walked to the bus stop while the city yawned awake. The streetlights flickered like tired eyes. She counted steps because counting kept her steady. At the diner, she pushed open the door and the bell chimed, cheerful and unaware. The floor was still damp from mopping. Coffee brewed in steady rhythm. She hung her coat, smoothed her uniform, and clocked in. She worked the morning rush with quiet precision. Orders remembered, refills timed perfectly, napkins placed just so. She noticed everything. The regular who liked his eggs soft but never said it. The woman who pretended not to cry into her coffee. The construction crew that tipped well when work was good and not at all when it was. Aisha never treated them differently. She believed dignity wasn't something you earned by paying extra. By noon, her feet ached. By afternoon, her smile was muscle memory. When the door opened again, she didn't look up right away. She was wiping a counter that didn't need wiping, a habit that kept her moving. When she did glance up, she noticed the man immediately, not because he was loud or flashy, but because he was careful. His coat was expensive but plain. His shoes were polished but scuffed at the heel like he actually walked places. He chose a corner booth with a view of the room and the door. People like that noticed exits. "Good afternoon," Aisha said, placing a menu in front of him. "Thank you," he replied, voice calm, eyes observant. He ordered simply, soup, grilled sandwich, black coffee. He watched her as she worked, the way her hands moved without hurry, the way she spoke to an elderly man like time was generous. He watched the jar by the counter labeled "for anyone who needs a meal" with handwritten letters and a chipped rim. He watched and he waited. When he finished eating, Aisha cleared the table with the same care she gave everyone else. The bill was high enough to matter to her. When she folded the receipt, she saw the tip, $10. For a moment, disappointment crossed her face, quick and unguarded like a shadow passing over water. Then it was gone. She folded the receipt neatly, slipped it into her pocket, and moved on. No sigh, no complaint. She wiped the counter. She refilled cups. She returned smiles. The man stayed seated. He stood only when she reached for the broom near the door. "Excuse me," he said calmly. Aisha turned, surprised. "Yes, sir." "Was there something wrong with my service?" Her eyebrows lifted. "No, sir," she said immediately. "Everything was fine." He nodded slowly, then pointed toward the table. "Then why did you look disappointed?" Aisha hesitated. She chose her words the way she chose her steps on icy mornings, carefully. "I was surprised, that's all, but tips are gifts, not obligations. I'm grateful for whatever someone can give." "Even when it feels unfair?" he asked. She smiled, small and tired. "Fairness isn't something we always get to choose. Kindness is." That answer stopped him. He reached into his pocket and placed another bill on the table. "Here," he said, "for good service." Aisha looked at the money, then shook her head gently. "You don't have to, sir." "I want to," he replied. She picked up the bill, walked past him, and placed it into the jar by the counter. When she returned, he was staring at her, stunned. "That money could have helped you," he said quietly. "It still will," Aisha replied, "just maybe not today." The bell over the door rang as he left, the sound lingering longer than it should have. Aisha went back to work. She didn't know she'd just been tested. She only knew she'd done what felt right. What Aisha didn't know was that the quiet man had come there with a purpose. He was a billionaire who had spent his life surrounded by smiles that had price tags and kindness that came with invoices. He had learned to test people because trusting them had always cost him more than money. The $10 tip was never about service. It was about character. But before that test, before the letter and the shaking hands and the tears, there was Aisha's life as it really was. After her shift, she took the long way home because it was cheaper. She stopped at the pharmacy to ask if the price of medication had changed. It hadn't. She bought half. At home, she reheated rice and shared it with her mother, who thanked her like it was a feast. Aisha smiled and said it was nothing. At night, she studied by the light of a single lamp, old textbooks borrowed from a friend, notes scribbled in the margins. She had once dreamed of studying public health, of helping communities that never made the news. Life had narrowed those dreams into survival, but they hadn't disappeared. They waited quietly, patient as hope. The next morning she returned to the diner. Same apron, same bell, same jar by the counter. The man did not come back. Days passed. Then a week. Aisha didn't think about him again. She had learned not to. A week later, the manager called her into the office. Her heart pounded. People only got called in for two reasons. She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped inside. On the desk lay a letter. Her name was written neatly on the envelope. Inside were documents for a full scholarship, a paid apartment lease, and a handwritten note. Your answer reminded me what wealth is really for. Because of you, I am rewriting my will. Aisha sat down, hands shaking, tears filling her eyes. Not because of the money, but because someone had finally seen her heart. Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart and you want to see more acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It means the world to me and helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. The diner looked the same the morning the quiet man returned, but Aisha didn't. She hadn't slept much after the letter. The words replayed in her mind like a song she didn't know all the lyrics to yet. Scholarship, apartment, rewrite my will. Big words that felt too heavy to hold. She half expected the envelope to vanish like a dream if she checked her bag. But it was still there, folded carefully, real and impossible. When the bell chimed and the door opened, Aisha felt something before she saw him, a change in the room. She looked up and there he was again, the same plain coat, the same careful eyes. He chose the same corner booth. For a second their eyes met. Recognition passed between them, quiet and unmistakable. "Good morning," Aisha said, steadying her voice as she approached. "Good morning," he replied. "May I sit here again?" She nodded, of course. He ordered the same meal, soup, grilled sandwich, black coffee. This time he didn't watch from a distance. This time he waited for her to return. "I'm glad you came back," she said, surprising herself with the honesty of it. "So am I," he replied. "I was hoping you'd still be here." She poured his coffee. "I usually am." He smiled faintly. "That says a lot." As the morning unfolded, he asked small questions, not the kind that pry, but the kind that listen. How long she'd worked there, whether she liked mornings or nights, what she did when she wasn't working. Aisha answered without embellishment. "I study," she said, "when I can." "What do you study?" "Public health, or I try to." He paused. "Why that?" She refilled his cup. "Because I grew up in a place where people got sick quietly. I wanted to be loud about helping." Something in his expression shifted, not surprise, recognition. When she returned with his food, he gestured toward the jar by the counter. "Do you fill that often?" "Whenever I can," she said. "So do some of the regulars." "And when you can't?" She shrugged. "Then someone else will, that's the point." He nodded slowly, like he was putting pieces together. Do you ever worry about yourself? Aisha met his eyes. All the time, I just don't let it decide who I am. For the first time he laughed, soft and genuine. You're different, he said. So I've been told, she replied with a small smile. He finished his meal and paid. This time the tip was generous. Aisha thanked him, her voice sincere but unchanged. He didn't stop her as she walked toward the jar. I'm not testing you today, he said gently. She paused, then turned back. Testing me. He held up a hand. That sounds worse than it is. I'm trying to learn how to do better. Aisha studied him. From a diner. From people, he corrected. Before he left, he placed a card on the table. No company logo, just a name and a number. If you ever need anything, he said. She picked it up, then set it back down. I appreciate it, but I don't want to owe you. He met her gaze. Then don't call if you want to talk. That afternoon, Aisha's manager pulled her aside. He asked about you, he said, eyebrows raised. Said you were special. Aisha flushed. I'm just doing my job. Maybe, the manager replied, but some people notice more than others. The first act of kindness came quietly. A bookstore across the street called the diner asking for Aisha by name. A package waited for her behind the counter. Inside were new textbooks, not used, new, no note, just a receipt paid in full. Her hands trembled as she closed the box. That evening her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I hope these help. No expectations. She stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. Thank you, they will. They began to talk after her shifts, short calls at first, then longer ones. He told her he'd built companies and lost people. That success had made him efficient and lonely. She told him about her mother, about the way fear could shrink a room. They didn't talk about money, they talked about choices. One night he asked, do you believe people can change? I think they can remember who they wanted to be, Aisha said. A pause, then I'd like to try. Trust didn't arrive all at once. It grew in small, careful steps. He never arrived unannounced. He never spoke down to her. When he helped, he asked first. When she refused, he respected it. The scholarship paperwork arrived officially. Then the lease. Everything was real, verified, legitimate. The diner threw her a small celebration with cupcakes and a handwritten card taped to the register. Aisha cried in the storage room, overwhelmed and grateful. That night she called him. Why me? She asked. Because you reminded me that kindness doesn't need an audience, he said. And because you didn't take what you could have. She swallowed. I don't want to lose myself. You won't, he said, not if you keep choosing the jar. What would you do if you discovered someone with incredible character living in such difficult circumstances? Let me know your thoughts below. I read every comment. The weeks that followed didn't feel like a miracle. They felt like work. Real change rarely arrives with fireworks. It comes with paperwork, waiting rooms, and the quiet fear that something might still go wrong. Aisha learned this quickly. The scholarship required forms she'd never seen before. The apartment lease came with signatures that made her hands sweat. Each step forward carried the echo of a life where steps forward had often been followed by 2 steps back. The man, she now knew him as Mr. Hale, though he insisted she call him Daniel, never rushed her. He sat with her in public spaces, cafes and libraries, letting her ask questions at her own pace. You don't owe me trust, he told her once. You can borrow it until you build your own. They met on Sundays after the diner closed early. Daniel listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, it was careful, as if words were tools that could either fix or break something fragile. He asked about her mother. He asked about the nights Aisha studied until her eyes burned. He asked about the jar by the counter. My mom says I give too much, Aisha admitted one afternoon. Daniel smiled. My advisors say I give too little. The diner community noticed the change before Aisha did. Her coworkers teased her gently. College girl, they called her, pride tucked into the joke. Some customers congratulated her. Others looked skeptical, like good news needed a catch. One woman whispered that nothing came free. Aisha nodded. She knew. At home, the obstacle took shape. Her mother worried aloud. "What if they take it back?" she asked, fingers twisting a dish towel. "What if this man expects something?" Aisha sat beside her. "He hasn't, and if he ever does, I'll walk away." "But you've already let yourself hope," her mother said softly. Aisha didn't answer because it was true. The first real complication arrived in an official envelope, a requirement she hadn't anticipated. The scholarship demanded full-time enrollment within a month. Aisha's work schedule made that impossible. The diner needed her. Rent still existed until the lease began. Her mother's care couldn't be paused. The old math returned, cruel and familiar. She called Daniel, voice tight. "I don't think I can do this." Silence, then, "Tell me what you need." "I need time," she said, "and I don't have it." Daniel exhaled. "Let me talk to the school." "I don't want favors," Aisha said quickly. "This isn't a favor," he replied. "It's advocacy." Days passed. Aisha worked double shifts, exhaustion pressing behind her eyes. Doubt crept in at night, whispering that this was a borrowed life, that it would end. The school agreed to a temporary adjustment. The diner agreed to flexible hours reluctantly. One coworker grumbled. Another hugged her. Progress came with friction. Then came the rumor. Someone posted online about a rich man buying a waitress's future. Comments multiplied. Speculation turned sharp. Aisha saw it on her break and felt her chest tighten. She considered quitting everything. Daniel met her that evening. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I won't be the reason people question your intentions," she replied. He looked at her steadily. "My intentions can withstand noise. Can yours withstand silence?" She thought of the jar, of the people it fed without explanation. "Yes," she said finally. The legal barrier followed. Daniel's family pushed back. Lawyers questioned his judgment. Aisha became a case study in a boardroom she'd never enter. Daniel's commitment was tested. He chose transparency. He chose distance when needed. He chose to keep helping without control. Aisha opened up slowly. She shared her fears, her anger at systems that punished kindness, her guilt at leaving coworkers behind. Daniel listened, absorbing it all. One night, Aisha stood outside her new apartment, keys cold in her palm. She hesitated. Daniel waited a few steps back. "I'm scared," she said. "That means you care," he replied. "About doing it right," she added. He nodded. "Then you will." Have you ever had to overcome obstacles to help someone you cared about? What challenges did you face? Share your experience below. The moment Aisha stepped into her new apartment, the reality hit her. The walls were painted a soft cream. The kitchen had cupboards that actually closed properly, and a window looked out over the city with a brightness she hadn't seen in years. She placed the scholarship documents on the counter and sat on the couch, feeling the weight of possibility pressing down in a way that was almost frightening. Daniel knocked lightly at the door, entering only when she nodded. He carried nothing, just presence, and that alone felt heavy with meaning. They sat together in quiet conversation. "This is yours," he said finally, "all of it. You earned it by being who you are, not because I decided to give it." She felt tears prick her eyes, but she swallowed them. "I'm scared I'll lose it," she admitted. "I've never had anything like this before." "You won't," he said. "Not if you keep choosing integrity over convenience." School started the following week. Aisha navigated lectures, labs, and long nights of studying with the energy of someone carrying a purpose she had long thought beyond reach. The first month was grueling. Assignments piled up, part-time work still called, and her mother's needs never paused. Yet each evening she returned to the apartment, laid out her books, and felt the quiet reassurance of security. Daniel continued to support her, not by stepping in to fix problems, but by helping her see solutions she had missed. The community around her shifted too. Coworkers who had once mocked the idea of her scholarship now watched with quiet pride. Customers at the diner sent letters and small gifts. People who had thought her life constrained suddenly found themselves rooting for her. The jar remained in the diner, still filling quietly, a symbol of her unwavering generosity. Obstacles continued. Group projects challenged her patience. Financial gaps required careful planning. Some nights she wanted to give up and return to the simpler rhythm of work. Daniel called during these moments. "Remember why you started," he said. "Not for me, not for recognition, but for the life you want to build." Slowly, she began to internalize the lessons. That persistence is a form of courage, and kindness is a choice even when life feels unjust. Months later, the apartment became more than a place to sleep. It became a sanctuary. A small plant thrived on the windowsill, a gift from a fellow student. Her mother's room felt warmer. She cooked simple meals, arranged her textbooks neatly, and kept the jar of small coins by the door for neighbors who might need help. Transformation wasn't instantaneous. It was quiet, accumulating strength and confidence over each day. Then came the defining moment. The billionaire's will. Daniel had spent decades believing wealth was a measure of control, power, and caution. Aisha's actions, her grace, her integrity, her selfless generosity made him reconsider. He realized true wealth wasn't in numbers, it was in the lives one touched. When the final documents arrived, the pen in his hand felt lighter than it ever had. He rewrote his will to include scholarships, support for community projects, and a fund for those who reminded him that human kindness cannot be purchased. Aisha's first real test of her growth came when she encountered another struggling student on campus. The young man had come from a neighborhood like hers, facing obstacles she knew too well. She gave him advice, resources, and the encouragement that she had received. Daniel observed quietly from afar, satisfaction shining in his eyes, realizing the ripple effect of one act of kindness multiplied through another. At the diner, she returned occasionally. The jar remained untouched by her hands. She let it be replenished by her presence alone. Customers noticed the change in her posture, the calm in her voice, the quiet confidence she exuded. Those who had doubted her now asked for guidance. Aisha gave freely, just as she had once received, but never expecting repayment. The full circle moment arrived on a quiet morning when she returned to the diner to thank a coworker who had supported her through her final shifts before leaving for school. The bell rang. Daniel was there, sitting in the corner, smiling faintly. She approached. "You're early," she said, voice filled with warmth. "I wanted to see the jar this morning," he replied. "And to see you," she laughed softly. "It looks the same, doesn't it?" "It does," he said, "but so do you in all the ways that matter." She looked around. The same worn counters, the same chipped plates, but the atmosphere had changed. It wasn't the diner that was different, it was her. The waitress who had once quietly given away extra money was now a woman reshaping lives, inspiring those around her, and showing that the ripple of kindness is infinite. Daniel handed her a small envelope. Inside, a note: "Keep choosing kindness. The world needs more of what you have." She smiled, tears forming, and placed the envelope into the jar. Others were watching, some smiling, some curious, all touched by the quiet power of her actions. Aisha realized that the world had shifted, not through wealth, not through power, but through choices, integrity, and a refusal to let hardship harden her heart. This story shows how one act of kindness can change everything. Years later, Aisha's life looked completely different, yet some things stayed the same. She had graduated with honors, earned her degree in public health, and started a nonprofit dedicated to helping underprivileged families access education and health care. Her mother was healthier, living comfortably in the apartment Aisha had once doubted she could afford. The diner still existed, a small sanctuary in the heart of the city, and Aisha returned whenever she could, not to work but to check on the jar, to say hello to coworkers, to remember where she had come from. Daniel, the billionaire who had tested her kindness, remained a friend and mentor. He had expanded his philanthropy, funding scholarships, community programs, and initiatives that prioritized integrity over profit. He often credited Aisha in interviews and speeches, calling her the person who reminded me that wealth is not a measure of success but of responsibility. The two of them occasionally met for quiet lunches, talking about life, dreams, and the small decisions that ripple into monumental change. The ripple effect of kindness didn't stop there. The students Aisha helped in her nonprofit became mentors themselves. Families once struggling now had guidance, support, and a model for generosity. Even the diner had become a hub for small acts of goodwill, patrons donating anonymously, volunteers organizing community meals, people choosing empathy over indifference. Aisha's single act of selflessness had created a chain reaction that no one could have predicted. The most powerful transformation was not financial. It was human. Aisha's heart remained grounded in humility, gratitude, and compassion. Daniel's perspective had shifted as well. He learned that real power lies in empowering others, not controlling them. Both understood that the world changes one small act at a time and that character matters more than currency. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary kindness exists all around us. If this touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people discover these inspiring stories. Subscribe for more tales of human kindness that will restore your faith in humanity. And most importantly, look for opportunities in your own life to be someone's unexpected blessing. What act of kindness will you perform this week? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and remember, you have the power to change someone's entire world.